All right, good morning. Before we get too far into drawing, what we need to do is talk about your materials. So, when you bought your books, you should have gotten a sketch pad, a few pencils. There should be something that looks like this, and an eraser. You might have a couple more things. There should be a pen, and we'll talk about the pen later. The only thing I'm going to mention about the pen before you start is that it is a drawing pen. So if you test it out or start working with it, before we get to that part, you do want to make sure you don't push down hard or the pen will get ruined very quickly. So be kind of gentle with the pen. I'll be going over that specifically at a later time, so just beware, okay? All right, so your drawing pad, it's kind of cool. You can personalize the cover if you want to. You have enough papers to get you through. We have plenty of material, but if you're going to be drawing on your own a lot, just make sure you don't use more than half of the papers because you will need them for your projects. All right, let's go over your pencils a second, just so you know. We'll be getting into the different weights and shades of pencils later on when we get to shading. But just off the bat, so you know what they are and what they're capable of. You should have a few pencils. One is a 2H pencil. That's your lightest one. And then your darkest one is a 6B. Okay? So I'm going to start with the 6B pencil because it's the biggest one. The heaviest one, I should say. 6B is going to be dark. Okay? So basically the different numbers. If you think about the B pencils or your softer leads, they're going to get you darker shadows, darker values when we get to value and shading. So 6B is your darkest one. If you actually look at the barrel of it, it's going to be like the thickest kind of. We'll talk about that later too. But 6B is your darkest pencil. You should have 4B and 2B. And then you should have something like either an H, an HB, an F, something like that. And then you should have some sort of H pencil. It might be a 2H, it might be an H. Don't worry too much, as long as you have something that's going to be your lightest pencil. So that just means when I'm using my 2H pencil, it's going to give me a lot lighter value with about the same amount of pressure. Okay, so if you want to start, learning your pencils and kind of just practicing them on your own a little bit, that's why I wanted to kind of go through those with you. So your pencils themselves, your lightest one is your H, whether it's 2H or H. And then it goes kind of HB is in the middle, and then 2B to 6B. 6B is your darkest pencil, just so you know. So that's how they kind of work. Go ahead and just kind of get familiar with them at the beginning when we're doing our initial projects. 2B pencil, it's the same one as you use for Scantrons and that sort of thing. It's a general use pencil, so a 2B pencil will be good for sketching and drawing because you're going to be able to see it. The darker they get, the 6B, they also are the smudgier ones. So beware. You don't really want to sketch a lot with your 6B pencil. And that's kind of it for those materials. Okay, this is a blending tool. We will be talking about that when we get to shading. And eraser. Use as needed, but we're going to actually work on not overusing an eraser. We're going to just work on starting with a light sketch. So with that in mind, one thing that you guys can always practice, if you're feeling unsure about your drawing skills, don't worry about it. This is drawing one. You should be at square one today, and by the end of the semester you're going to be better. So part of that is practice. One thing that we're going to get into in our next one of our next videos is the concept of sketching and drawing lightly. So as you're getting familiar with your materials and your pencils, one thing to watch as you're drawing is you don't want to use your pencil like the way you write. So if I'm writing and I'm pushing down with a lot of pressure, I can even feel it. It's like, and it kind of etched into the paper. You do want to work on these lighter marks where I'm barely pushing down on the paper. So one thing to try, if you want to, is instead of holding it real tight and clenched, like maybe how you work on your penmanship, you can back up, hold it farther. You can turn it around and kind of hold it this way. Some people actually flip it and sketch this way. But basically, you can do it, you can hold it however you want to, but you got to work on these really, really light pencil marks. So even if you just kind of do this a little bit, try and barely touch the paper, and try to almost draw from your shoulder, like loosen up and just kind of practice some of these big movements. Okay? So that's step one of just getting to know your materials so that you know how to use them. All right? Okay, on to the next video.